Picture this. Japan's legendary warrior class wasn't destroyed by invasion or wiped out in battle. They destroyed themselves. For over 700 years, the samurai had ruled Japan through violence, loyalty, and fear. They were the military elite, the only people allowed to carry swords, men raised from birth to believe their entire purpose was to serve, fight, and die with honor. And then, they made a decision almost no warrior class in history has ever willingly made. They chose to dismantle their own system. This isn't some Hollywood betrayal story. This is the true story of how the samurai, Japan's legendary warrior class, committed the ultimate act of self-destruction. And the twist? They did it to save Japan. Welcome to Japan Rewind, where the myths end and the real history begins. By the 1860s, the samurai faced an impossible choice. For centuries, they'd been Japan's military elite, the only people allowed to carry swords, the enforcers of social order, the backbone of Japanese society. But here's the thing about being a warrior class in peacetime. You become really, really expensive. Japan had been isolated for over 200 years. No major wars, no foreign threats, just samurai collecting government salaries for basically existing. They made up only 6% of the population, but consumed nearly 40% of the national budget. To put this in perspective, imagine if today's military consumed 40% of the entire federal budget while never actually fighting anyone. That's the economic burden Japan was carrying. The samurai had become a massive welfare system disguised as a military force. Meanwhile, 4 American warships had just sailed into Tokyo Bay with a simple message: "Open your borders, or we'll open them for you." Japan was about to face the modern world with a medieval military system. And some samurai realized that to save Japan, they'd have to destroy themselves. The leader of this self-destruction was a man named Saigo Takamori. If you've seen The Last Samurai, you know him. Except Hollywood got almost everything wrong. Saigo understood that the old samurai system could not survive unchanged in the modern world. Here's the mind-bending part. Saigo and his fellow samurai reformers didn't just want to modernize Japan's military. They wanted to dismantle the hereditary samurai order itself. Their own class. Think about that for a second. Imagine if Navy SEALs decided that to protect America, they needed to disband the entire military and start over. That's essentially what these samurai were proposing. The plan was radical. Abolish the samurai's exclusive right to carry swords, end their government stipends, create a modern conscript army where peasants could become soldiers, and basically turn 700 years of Japanese social order upside down. And the craziest part? They succeeded. But to understand why they made this choice, you need to understand just how broken the system had become. The samurai weren't just expensive, they were actively holding Japan back. Most hadn't seen real combat in generations. They spent their time practicing calligraphy, writing poetry, and engaging in elaborate ceremonies that had nothing to do with actual warfare. When Western observers visited Japan in the 1850s, they were shocked to find that these legendary warriors were essentially government bureaucrats with swords. Consider this. The average samurai in 1860 was more likely to die from illness or old age than from battle. Many had become completely removed from actual warfare. Some had never drawn their swords in combat. They were living symbols of a military tradition that no longer existed, supported by a government that could barely afford to maintain an entire hereditary warrior class that no longer served its original purpose. The Meiji Restoration of 1868 wasn't just a change of government. It was the samurai systematically dismantling their own power structure. First, they convinced the emperor to issue the Charter Oath, which declared that the absurd customs of olden times shall be abandoned. Translation: everything the samurai stood for was now officially outdated. Then came the real shock: the conscription edict of 1873. Suddenly, any peasant could be drafted into the military. The samurai's monopoly on warfare, their entire reason for existing, was gone overnight. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on your perspective. The government started paying samurai to give up being samurai. They offered lump sum payments to anyone willing to surrender their hereditary stipends. Imagine getting paid to quit your family's 700-year-old profession. Many samurai took the deal. They used the money to become merchants, industrialists, even farmers, occupations that would have been beneath them just years earlier. The final blow came in 1876, the Sword Abolishment Edict. Samurai could no longer carry their swords in public. The symbol of their entire identity was now illegal. The psychological impact of these changes was devastating. Imagine waking up one day to find that everything that defined you, your job, your status, your very identity, had been declared obsolete by your own government. Some samurai couldn't handle it. Suicide rates among the warrior class increased dramatically. Others turned to alcohol or simply disappeared into the countryside, unable to cope with their new reality. But many others embraced the change with the same discipline they'd once applied to swordsmanship. The most tragic cases were the older samurai who had lived their entire lives believing in the system. Men in their 60s and 70s who suddenly found themselves worthless in the new Japan. Their skills, archery, swordsmanship, horseback riding, were now as relevant as knowing how to operate a catapult. Some literally didn't know how to function in a world where their birth didn't guarantee their status. Historical accounts describe former samurai sitting silently beside swords they could no longer legally carry, watching the world that created them disappear. Not all samurai were happy about committing class suicide. Some rebelled, leading to the Satsuma Rebellion of 1877, the last stand of the traditional samurai. And here's where the story gets beautifully ironic. The rebellion was led by Saigo Takamori himself, the same man who had helped dismantle the samurai system. Why did one of the architects of modernization end up leading their final battle? Because the government had gone too far, too fast. Saigo believed in modernization, but he also believed in preserving Japanese values. When the new government started abandoning all traditional principles in their rush to westernize, Saigo felt they were throwing away Japan's soul along with its outdated systems. The rebellion lasted 8 months. Traditional samurai with swords and spears faced off against a modern conscript army equipped with rifles and artillery. The outcome was inevitable. Saigo died in the final battle, and with him died the last organized resistance to Japan's transformation. But even in defeat, Saigo proved his point. The government realized they'd been too aggressive in abandoning Japanese traditions and began incorporating more traditional values into their modernization efforts. Here's what makes this story fascinating from a strategic perspective. The samurai who dismantled their own class weren't traitors. They were visionaries. They understood something that most elite classes throughout history have failed to grasp. Sometimes, you have to destroy the system to save the country. Look at what happened to other warrior aristocracies when faced with modernization. European knights became irrelevant and faded away. Chinese mandarins clung to tradition and watched their empire crumble. Russian nobles resisted change until revolution destroyed them completely. The Japanese samurai chose a different path, controlled demolition instead of inevitable collapse. And it worked. Within 50 years, Japan had transformed from a feudal backwater into a modern industrial power that could defeat Russia and challenge the West. The samurai's sacrifice made the Japanese miracle possible. But here's the really clever part. While the samurai destroyed their class, they didn't destroy their values. Many former samurai became the leaders of modern Japan. They brought their discipline, their sense of duty, and their willingness to sacrifice for the greater good into new roles as industrialists, educators, and government officials. The samurai code of bushido didn't disappear, it evolved. The loyalty once given to feudal lords was transferred to the emperor and the nation. Elements of samurai discipline became embedded inside modern Japanese business, education, and government culture. The willingness to sacrifice for honor became the willingness to sacrifice for Japan's modernization. In a sense, the samurai didn't really destroy themselves. They transformed themselves into something new while preserving what mattered most. Take Fukuzawa Yukichi, a former samurai who became one of Japan's most influential educators. He founded Keio University and wrote books that taught Japanese people how to think like Westerners while remaining Japanese. Or consider the Mitsubishi Zaibatsu, founded by Iwasaki Yataro, another former samurai who applied warrior discipline to building one of Japan's largest industrial empires. The transformation wasn't easy. Many former samurai struggled with their new identities. They'd been raised to believe that commerce was beneath them, that physical labor was degrading, that their worth came from their bloodline rather than their achievements. Suddenly they had to compete in a merit-based society where peasants could rise higher than nobles. Some adapted brilliantly, others never recovered from the shock. But collectively, they managed something unprecedented in world history. A remarkably controlled revolution that completely transformed society without destroying its essential character. This story isn't just about Japanese history. It's about the courage to abandon what you are to become what you need to be. How many industries today are facing their own samurai moment? How many companies, institutions, or even individuals are clinging to outdated systems because change feels like betrayal? The samurai teach us that sometimes the most loyal thing you can do is to destroy the very thing you've sworn to protect, if that destruction serves a higher purpose. They show us that true strength isn't about preserving power, but about knowing when to give it up. The samurai who destroyed their own class weren't traitors or cowards. They were perhaps the most courageous warriors in Japanese history. They faced an enemy they couldn't defeat with swords, the future itself. So they did something unprecedented. They surrendered their identity to save their country. And in doing so, they proved that sometimes the greatest victory requires the ultimate sacrifice. The willingness to destroy everything you are to become everything you need to be. The last samurai weren't the ones who died fighting change. They were the ones who chose to become the change. If this video changed the way you see the samurai, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Japan Rewind for more deep dives into the hidden systems, contradictions, and realities behind Japanese history.